Hey, what is going on, guys? Royale Season 5 has brought forward all sorts of new changes, such as the desert area in the southeast, the lazy links, the ATKs, the cube. But in today's video, we're going to be focusing on specifically on the weapon changes. There actually has been a pretty significant amount of adjustment that's happened in Season 5. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the differences in the weapon meta in Season 5 against Season 4. And of course, we'll go through every weapon class. So that's shotguns, ARs, SMGs, pistols, snipers, and structure destroyers. Of course, there'll be timestamps if you're curious in a particular class. And with that, let's start out with the shotguns. So our three core shotguns that we had in Season 4, Pump, Tac, and Heavy, have remained unchanged, but the double barrel has been added, which I do think presents a viable option. Do I think the double barrel is the best shotgun out of the four? Probably not. It is pretty good at point blank range, but it's completely useless outside of that range. So it's a very niche weapon. You have to play a certain way where you jump in your opponent's face to really do any significant damage. One off-meta strategy you could try is running a pump or particularly a heavy shotgun with a double barrel. And with that strategy, you would use the heavy or pump primarily for most of that fight. And then once you do some damage or you're point blank, you can jump in with the double barrel and finish the job. I think it's a decent option. I'd probably say it's about in line with attack shotgun and strength, but I think it's just a little bit worse than the heavy and pump, but still a viable option if that's something you like. In terms of the ARs, pretty much everything has remained unchanged, except for we have a new option, which is a silenced AR. I do think the silenced AR is actually pretty decent. While in historical chapter 1, I would say the silenced AR was a bit worse than the SCAR, probably more in line with the standard gray through blue AR. Overall, it seems to be the silenced AR has been nerfed less relative to the SCAR and standard AR. So I actually think it's a little bit more competitive in Rewind Royale than it is in, say, like Nexus or Easy FN. It's a really decent option. You've got great long-range damage since the bloom is very good if you tap fire it. Not as good when spamming at close range as it does a little bit less damage at equal rarity. But definitely a really competitive option. You could totally run this thing. It's very solid. Let's move into the SMGs, which has actually seen a pretty noticeable change here. So the drum gun has remained and the silenced SMG has also remained unchanged. The silenced SMG is really bad, so basically that's you don't use it, you get rid of it as soon as you find a replacement. And the drum gun is still here. It's an okay option, not exceptional. The DPS is pretty low, lower than realistically the ARs in some cases, but it does the job okay. The tactical SMG has been vaulted, which I think is great. The tactical SMG was really bad before, so it's just a useless gun, and it's good that it's gone. In its place, we have the standard SMG, and what you would remember as the compact SMG or the P90. So let's talk about each of these weapons separately. The standard SMG, the gray through blue, is nowhere near the strength it was in Historical Season 5. It does less damage and has a lower rate of fire. It's not the worst gun in the world. I'd say it's still like an average gun. It does the job. It's definitely better than the silenced SMG, but it's nothing special. It's just an okay option, competitive with the drum gun. Now, the P90 is not the compact SMG you remember, where you have a lower DPS, but a bigger magazine and a slower reload. Instead, it's just a direct upgrade from the standard SMG. So you have that same 11 rounds per second rate of fire, 30 magazine size, and a pretty quick reload. Overall, I actually think the high tier SMG or P90 is actually a really solid gun, especially the gold one, as it does 20 damage, which means you need one less shot to eliminate someone. It's actually a really decent option. I genuinely think this is the only SMG that I actually think is good. The standard SMG, gray through blue, and the drum gun are okay, but the purple and gold I actually think are solid options. I genuinely recommend you run it. It's a really good choice if you can find it. And let's move into the pistols. Overall, there hasn't been really any adjustment here. If I recall correctly, the silenced pistol was already blue-purple in Season 4, and so was the dual pistols as well. What that means is there's been effectively no change, but the meta is pretty much the same, where the standard pistol and the silence, I think, are overall pretty bad. The hand cannon and dualies, though, I think are okay to decent options, though. Let's move on to the sniper rifles, where there has been a pretty noticeable adjustment. So the bolt action and hunting rifle have remained unchanged, but the semi-auto has actually been nerfed, and it's not through a direct stat nerf, instead it's through a rarity nerf. This is historical, as in Season 5 it got reduced from purple gold to green blue. Now in Historical Season 5 that did absolutely nothing to the stats, but in Rewind Royale that basically means you're just effectively nerfing the semi-auto sniper. Now how much of a difference does that make? I actually do think it makes a noticeable difference. The blue semi-auto sniper, honestly, is just barely weaker than the purple or gold one. It does 101 damage instead of 110 for the gold. Not the biggest deal. You know, it takes a tiny bit longer to reload. It's effectively the same gun. You can still two-shot people. with 200 health with body shots alone, and if you hit a headshot, you can still one-shot them. It's still a really strong option. The blue one I still think is S tier, but the green one actually is a step below. Because it only does 97 damage, that means you can no longer two-shot people with just body shots. You can still hit one-shots if you line up a critical hit. You can still 200-0 someone. But because of that body damage, it actually is noticeably weaker, and it actually genuinely means there is some reason to use the bolt action over the green semi, although I still think the green semi is still overall the superior option. What this means is the semi is still definitely oppressive and a really strong weapon, but do I think it's outright by far the best weapon in Rewind Royale? I don't think so anymore. I don't think the green semi-auto sniper is a mandatory carry, but I would still say the blue is probably mandatory. It's still very strong. Let's move to the heavy sniper now. The heavy sniper is not as strong as it was in Historical Season 5, where I'd argue it was a decent step up over the other snipers and the best one. It's a decent choice. You do a little bit more damage than the other ones, with I believe it's 126, 132 damage, but you have the slowest reload. You have more structure damage than any other snipers, which is nice. I think it's a decent option, but I'd still say the semi-auto sniper is overall the best sniper in the game. Finally, let's move on to the structure destroyers. There really hasn't been any change. I have not seen the guided missile, which leads me to believe it's not there, but the meta is very similar. The grenade launcher and RPG are both very strong. I'd argue the grenade launcher is the best option right now. It's very effective at close range and medium range. RPG is still also a strong option, don't get me wrong, but I'd overall say because the grenade launcher, it's so easy to leak shots, I would overall say it's the best choice. So with that, I hope this video was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one.